Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of The Wrap. On tonight's episode, we're going to discuss delays, drop goals, and whatever's on the news desk. Hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Welsh Regional Rugby Appreciation Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Harley. I am joined by Hattie, Nick, and Dan. How are we doing, gents and lady?
Evening.
Good.
Good, thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you very
I'll
much.
leave the listener. I'll leave the listeners and viewers to decide who I've called a gent and who I'll call a lady.
Yeah. I bet Dan looks great in a frock though.
Won't be my first time, I can tell you that much.
Didn't doubt
So,
it.
so Dan, no Abertillery watch proper because you were away in Scotland. How was it in the wrath of Storm Amy?
Windy, wet, a little bit of a write-off. There was a long old drive up to Scotland, so our ninth annual sort of Jolly Boys trip up to Scotland, and it was a 13 and a half hour trip up due to a collision just outside of Carlisle. So yeah, and it was downhill from there really, but it was lovely driving back on Sunday in the sunshine, as it was. But no, it was okay. Good to catch up with an old group of friends and so on and so forth. And yeah, obviously I've managed to sit down and watch the Abbott Lady game and do my analysis, etc. on that. And we went down 37-27 to a strong Glamorgan Wanderers team, unfortunately. Decent game of rugby, and I suppose it kind of shows that yeah, all right, we didn't win the game, but at least we kind of belong in the league a little bit. So because we pushed them all the way right until the end. So it was a good outing from the boys. They stuck right in there. We did a bit of a dragons really. We probably should have come away with a bonus point or two, but it wasn't to be. So on to next week when we travel down to St. Joseph's.
Yeah, Hattie, how's things PhD wise rugby history project? Rug boo boos is that the term we're
Rug,
going for them now? The rug boo
rug boo
boos.
boo.
So anyone who's on the audio,
You
Hattie
can't
has
explain
got her
this.
laboo has basically got a laboo with a rugby ball. I don't
Yeah.
fully understand it, but I strongly recommend just having a quick look on the YouTube for this a couple of minutes in just to see because it is a thing.
There's a Wales one as well, which if you saw me at the World Cup, you'd have seen. But yeah, rug boo boos, Peachley, life's happening, stuff's happening. Unfortunately, obviously, as we know, the Scarlets game was called off, so went to IKEA instead. It
Oh,
was National Cinnabon Day. Cinnamon bun day. So got to have a cinnamon bun. That was good. And cleared
Oh,
out my
that's what
shed.
those announcements are about. I also was at an IKEA on Saturday and had no idea what was going
That
on.
would,
Are they
yeah,
sponsoring us now? IKEA.
it should
If
do.
anyone who works with IKEA and wants to arrange a sponsorship, fine. I will quite happily start doing assembly furniture demos on the pod as a side hustle because I actually really enjoy putting together IKEA furniture. I find it therapeutic.
I'm sorry,
Me
but it's the
too.
worst place on God's green earth. Once you're in there, that one-way system, it's like Jumanji. You just can't get out.
It like
I
tickles a
just do what
part
everyone
of
else
my
does and go the
brain.
wrong way and really upset me.
Mm. Oh. And then it should be some sort of Olympic sport, being able to pack all of that, flat pack stuff you've got into a small hatchback, or to see families with 2.4 kids in the back and everything sort of over their heads. And oh, no, it's not for me, that place.
The
Not
I've
for
listed
me.
it as a
best,
special skill on my CV. Pack it,
yeah.
getting IKEA boxes into a car.
The best card that we've found to do it in is weirdly my mum's mini because it's very square, so you can fit a lot in. Whereas we tried my granddad's 4x4 and you can't get anything in there. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
that was
I
my weekend,
weirdly my
clearing out my
Fiesta
shed
is
and
better.
IKEA.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
weirdly my Fiesta is better than my Focus because because it was a three door. You could fold the seat went down properly.
yeah,
Then
yeah.
Nick, how's life in Gogland?
Absolutely fine. Weather's lovely. Looking forward to coming down to see you lot this weekend on the first home game at the state-of-the-art Brewery Field.
Yes.
What a place.
Hang on. Can we please use because it'll be coming up later in the pod. Let's use the name of the stadium, the Dunraven Brewery Field,
Oh, sorry,
because
the Dunraven
title
Stadium.
sponsor names are
I
important.
do apologise to them.
Oh, yes. Don't
Right.
even.
Yeah. Nick, so I finished on you because it's time for Nick's never ending news desk. Dun 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 dun.
Well, it's ended. There is no news. Other than, of
Woo!
course, the only thing I picked up is obviously the consultation has been completed on the 30th of September. Dave Reddin has had a series of interviews with different media outlets, including obviously the Welsh Rugby Union, that put out a podcast, I think almost a week ago now, obviously referring to the 31 meetings that took place with supporters, fans, and the players and other interested groups. And it's a big week. This is the week that apparently they'll be pulling all that information together. And the next scheduled meeting for the WR Executive Board is on Wednesday. So the initial findings of the consultation will be presented, from my understanding, to the board. I don't think it's necessarily a decision-making meeting. Most of those meetings, he insists, have been positive in nature. And obviously, we've probably had feedback from our own supporters groups. And certainly, I can only speak for the Ospreys. Grant and the supporters club of the Ospreys, said it was, a genuine two-way conversation, and a lot of time was given. In fairness to the union, whether they'll listen, of course, is another question. He has admitted that there's unlike that the decision, whichever they come to, will be obviously slap bang in the lead up to our first international of the autumns, which is obviously less than ideal, but there we are. It is what it is, I guess. And that he's also sort of alluded to me that there's likely to be some slippage in the initial timescales that they initially put out. I got the flavour of that from the things I've listened to, and obviously, you might have listened and you might have picked up some other things. So I'll stop there. I'm quite happy to give my opinion, what I think will happen. But obviously, sorry, and the other thing it says, I spoke obviously to Simon Williams with other guys on the Welsh Language podcast on Thursday. Simon and the Glad group obviously conducted a separate questionnaire survey, which over 1,000 people responded to, and the Welsh Rugby Union have said they will take that into consideration as well. Simon, sort of covered things that we've covered as well in the Welsh Language podcast, but said all the things that we've said. So it's going to be an interesting period now in the rest of this month.
Yeah, I've listened to a couple of pods with the Dave Reddin thing over the course of the day, in the car, etc. And I suppose the one thing that stood out is whilst everyone bangs on about the pro game, and rightly so, ultimately we want a successful national team in the men's game and the women's game. But I suppose the elephant in the room a little bit would be the amount of funding that we plough into the grassroots game. And I thought that was an interesting topic of conversation because there's an awful lot of grassroots clubs in Wales. I don't know whether have we got too many. Um, are they all serving a purpose at the moment? I know there'll be some real historical clubs in Wales, but I don't know whether they're all serving a purpose in terms of
Can we put a pin in that
yeah.
towards ready when we go to community corner, because we have had a submission for that, and I think that actually will tie in quite nicely
Yeah.
with that question.
Let's
That's
make a
all you
note of
done.
that then. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's put a pin in that. We'll chat about it towards the end in community corner, no problem at all. But other than that, Nick, the only thing that I picked up on is again, no one's asking about the Principality naming rights deal.
No.
That's the big elephant in the room for me. And I know the both of us really have banged on about it. We need to know some numbers in terms of that. I don't think there's any point in. They will know now, I would have thought, what sort of numbers they're looking at. And I don't think there's any point in them publicising anything, especially in terms of figures and numbers for funding, etc., until we, the rugby public, know what that number is, in terms of the stadium naming deal. So that still needs to be resolved and resolved quickly. And again, I'll nail my colours to the mast on this for people that may be new to this or whatever. But for me, anything shy of a Twickenham style deal is a letdown.
Yeah, I
Um,
got a bit of a discussion and I learned from this mistake on Twitter with somebody around this. And we're saying who would want to invest in Welsh rugby. And as we said before, it's nothing to do with rugby.
No.
When Taylor Swift plays at the stadium, that's massive, and people don't give a monkey's toss how Welsh rugby's doing, or what the Welsh team's doing. All they'll hear is Taylor Swift is doing a concert on the 20th of July at a such and such stadium in Cardiff.
Mm.
And that's exactly right. And Taylor Swift has been really vocal this week, I think, on Sean Scott Mill's show on Radio 2. I think whereby she's come out saying that, she's got a new album out, saying that the Welsh fans are fantastic. I want to go back to Cardiff and so on and so forth. I got no doubt that when the time comes, that will happen. So, and this time I think it's been floated around. She'll be doing 2 nights instead of 1, etc., etc. There's going to be close to 150, 160,000 people that are going to go and see Taylor Swift in Cardiff over 2 nights. And I would argue a very small percentage of them are going to be avid rugby fans who care whether it's a rugby stadium or not. That's
Sean from Women's Rugby Treehouse would like to disagree with you heavily there, because she is both a huge Taylor Swift fan and the biggest Cardiff fan, apart from Harley, that I've ever met.
That's my youngest
no, Sean is a bigger Cardiff fan. I will argue that about her being a bigger Taylor Swift fan than me, though.
Yeah.
I have no shame in being a bit of a Swiftie. One thing I said, the name rights. One thing that producer Lee has asked us is actually not just naming rights to the main stadium, but also for the other stadiums. Now, obviously, that's going to be quite complicated for Ospreys and Cardiff at the moment, as Ospreys are in Borough Ground. Cardiff don't own theirs yet, but there's no reason why WU couldn't help get a sponsorship deal for the Dragons and Parker Scarlets. I don't know if I feel like the Scarlets fans wouldn't want Parker Scarlets to be, I don't know, Parky Watchers of Wales Scarlets, but because I feel like it gets a bit more clunky.
But then, the Leicester Tiger Stadium
parade would be great.
Yeah. The Leicester Tiger Stadium is what, Matolio, what's it?
Yeah.
Welford Road. Yeah.
Matolio Road, Welford Road, yeah.
Yeah.
Huge mouthful.
But everyone just calls it Welford Road anyway. So I feel like whatever you stick in front of Parker Scarlets, it's just going to be Parker Scarlets.
Just got to swallow your pride, haven't you? And just take the bloody money.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's what's the important part. I'd rather that the teams have more money than it be whatever. A stadium name is not that important, in my opinion. It's still Twickenham. It's not necessarily the Allianz, but Allianz are putting money into it. Does anyone really care?
No.
No.
No, I care about the money, not because the reality is that's where we are with it, isn't it? That's life. So yeah, I'd be all for renaming Rodney Parade or Abbott Lady Park for that matter. If someone wants to come and sponsor Abbott Lady Park, I'm all for that.
Gold Stadium, Abertillery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's do it.
A couple of other points I've missed. So, I mean, the 2 big ones I've listened with Dave Reddin on our Scum 5 and the Wales Online pod, which came out today, so I've managed to get through that. So, one of the big ones, so a couple of talking points. One is the development campus. So, Dave Reddin saying it's going to be harder to do with more than 2 teams. I think you can, as long as you don't have to have, because I don't feel you have to have a base, but people pick it one thing. The other one is he's whaling back on the One Wales idea of having the men and women's national sides in the top 5 consistently by 2029. He said that's probably unrealistic, which again, I think is fair enough. The interesting one, though, because I think it's one that certainly amongst most Cardiff fans, I know not all the regions are similar, not all fans of each region believe this, but he said that Anglo-Welsh isn't on the table. So that, that's an interesting one, because that seems to be one of the ones that we get a lot of people driving saying, we want to be in an Anglo-Welsh.
Can I just come in there?
Yeah.
And give me a little bit of ground on this. There was a girl in school when it was a long time ago now, called Nia, and I really like Nia, and she's a very attractive girl, and I wanted to go out with Nia. Unfortunately, there was only one of us in that. There was 2 people in this situation. Only one of us agreed with that idea, and my point is that we're assuming, of course, that the English clubs are absolutely dying for Welsh, two, three, four Welsh teams to join their league. And if they're not, they're in the same situation I was really. They're gonna say no, aren't they? So unless we know for certain that the English Prem teams want a two, three, four Welsh teams, it's an irrelevant question. And also be careful what you wish for, because they might turn around and say, yeah, that's fine, but it's only two.
But also, like the thing that always gets me, and obviously I say this as if you can't tell by my accent, a Wales fan who was born and raised in England and very much live in rugby country, there's been three clubs in the Premiership go bust in the last couple of years. It's not a financially stable league. It's not financially stable for the clubs themselves. Why on earth would you want to join it? And for the arguments around like, oh, well, it's closer and it's better for away days, are people really going to want to drive to West London and North London for Saracens and Harlequins and deal with the traffic? Are people
Dale,
really
Dale, Newcastle.
yeah, do you want to go up to Newcastle? No. Does anybody really want to go to the sale ground? Because it's awful. Like, Exeter, as Harley knows, is a long way. Like it's a lot easier to get on a flight than it is to drive all the way to some of the places that are in England. Just
I
saying.
think a lot of those, I think you're right there. And just to pick up that point, I think if you look at some of the, like I'm on some of these Twitter and Facebook groups, rugby memorabilia and so on and so forth, and the Monmouthshire County group and stuff like that, and people post some brilliant old programs in there, and they'll have like the fixture list from back in the Merit League, Merit Table days back in the 70s and the 80s. And there's two things to factor in there. Number one, it was Wednesday, Saturday every week.
Mhm.
Wednesday,
Yeah,
Saturday. Now, at any level of rugby now, certainly down to sort of Div 3, you can't do that. It's way too physical. You ain't doing it. And secondly, the teams that were being played then were the English teams now were primarily Gloucester, Bath, Bristol, probably a London Welsh around that time, maybe an Exeter. And maybe then like a Taunton and things like that. They were West Country clubs. There
yeah,
weren't many of those Welsh teams playing a Moseley, a Sale, a Richmond, and so those fixtures did happen. Don't get me wrong, but not as frequently as there was something. I was looking at an old Abbott Leary program a couple of weeks ago. Where Abbott Leary went and played Gloucester away on a Wednesday night. Um,
yeah,
well, that's not happening. So I think the fixtures that people are longing for are those West Country rivalries, your Barts, your Bristols, your Gloucesters, maybe your Exeters, and so on. Not that I don't think we've got much of an affinity play in Newcastle, Sale, Saracens, and so on and so forth. So maybe is a little bit of a false dawn there, or a little bit of a fallacy that, the Anglo-Welsh League is all singing and all dancing, when in actual fact it was primarily the west of England that we were playing rugby against during those Merit League or Merit Table days. I stand to be corrected on that by a few of the old boys that were playing back in the day. Drop a comment or come at me and prove me wrong. But yeah, I agree with Hattie. I can't see many people wanting to be driving to Sale or Newcastle. Saying, if you're going to Newcastle, you may as well go to Glasgow or Edinburgh. It's a couple of hours difference.
Yeah, it's and also not only that, I don't think anybody's really factoring in how expensive Prem matches are to attend and how expensive season tickets are because if Welsh teams join the Prem, they would presumably have to sort of match the figures, even if they were headed towards the bottom of that pyramid. Um, like the tickets are horrific in comparison to how much a ticket for any of the four Welsh teams currently are. And that's not a slight on the Wales tickets at all. I think actually it's a good thing that rugby is affordable to a point. Um, and more about how hideously expensive English rugby is.
And
and
what I
you've
would, sorry, Nick,
oh,
what the other thing I was just going to add is I would argue at the moment the URC as a competition is probably a bit more competitive as well, in that in England you got Bath and Saracens probably top two, I would say, especially Bath looking at being top of the pops there, again based on their squad. Everyone else in the middle. And then unfortunately Newcastle, whilst they're in the rebuilding phase, are still the bum team there. Everyone's looking to beat them.
Mm.
So do we not want that competition? It's, going to win out in Ireland or, the teams that have picked up wins out in South Africa. That's a big feather in your cap. Those are tough places to go. That's not just down the M4 or down the M5. That's a proper away day.
And talking about that's the point I was going to make. That Dan is just to reiterate that for young players like say Harry Deves, Dan Edwards. Now we've just come back from South Africa. You know that is a hell of an experience going to South Africa and playing in those against even without the box, still very strong teams in totally alien conditions. So in about a player development sort of pathway, are they going to learn more from that than going to Newcastle or Sale? I would argue, the former ran the latter.
And let's not forget Ireland and South Africa are two of the top four teams in
Yeah,
the world at the moment. So you're playing against, when they're at full tilt, you're playing against the best rugby players in the world.
I'm neutral on it. I must be honest, I'm neutral on it. But I don't like this argument that this is the be all and end all and
Yeah,
the future of Welsh rugby.
and I think that's the point. Don't get me wrong. I think a Bath Dragons game would be great. A
Mm.
Bristol Dragons game.
Yeah,
It's 40 minutes away.
yeah,
Mm.
It's another derby, in reality, but it's not it doesn't solve, the problem of that rugby's got, not just Welsh rugby. It doesn't solve the problem that rugby's got because England has got a problem whereby they've only got 10 teams in the top flight. Um, and if anyone else went into that league from the championship, they're likely to get spanked week in, week out and go bust very quickly.
yeah.
So it's it's not, those are not halcyon days
No,
that will be coming around the corner if we join the Anglo-Welsh.
You also got ownership model issues, like with WRU providing quite a fair bit of the funding. Like, they start being questions about salary cap and saying, well, if you turn around and say, oh, well, the club's only paying them 20%, but we're paying the internationals 80%, you've got a 500k player for 100k on your salary cap and things. And then how do you tie in the allowances for that with the English internationals have the agreements? The WRU still have to have an agreement if they wanted players to be released certain times.
And,
Whereas with the
and
URC, it's sort of just, unions look after their own and they can do what they like.
yeah, and listening to Dave Reddin earlier on various platforms, it's my understanding is the union of stakeholders in the URC as well. So
yeah.
it's not just as simple as, don't get me wrong, if we really wanted it to be done, it could be done. I got no doubt about that. But, is it best for us? I don't know whether it is. And at the moment, if four Welsh teams competed in the Prem this year, where do you finish,
Mm.
for example?
Bottom.
Yeah,
We are.
towards the bottom. I think most of them would have a good go at the Falcons, but we'd be in a 14 team league. I think we'd all be in the bottom seven
Yeah.
or thereabouts. So yeah, it'll be interesting couple of weeks to see what comes out of this. I just hope, as we always call for some level of transparency, I hope that they keep that level of there is a level of transparency now going forward, and we're kept informed, just to stop the speculation.
Can I just ask there, obviously the timing, of course, is wrong. We all know that, but it is what it is. Would you, if you're involved as we are as fans, certainly if you're a player or a member of staff at any of our four clubs, would you rather know sooner or would you like a decision made as soon as possible, or would you like it delayed?
As soon as possible, I think. You imagine now um, if you were playing this season, you were told that one of the regions would go in, or you'd be playing your socks off for a contract to put yourself in the window elsewhere.
Yeah,
I don't think we can underestimate the exodus of top talent should there be change. Um, for me, the important thing for people to realize is that while things haven't been great since, well, in reality, under Pivac it wasn't too bad. We were competitive and we got the quarter final of the last World Cup. So since 2023, really, we've fallen off a cliff. but that's due to the lack of investment in our professional infrastructure for the previous years, sort of 10 years prior to that, not our professional structure, on-field professional structure now.
Mm.
It's the stuff that underpins it. It's the grassroots pathway. It's the coaching pathway. It's the National Academy pathway, the Academy's pathway. The whole thing. That's what the issue has been. Is that the fact that was underinvested and eroded. And if you take the foundations out of the house, it's going to start to sink. And that's what's happened now.
Yeah.
So you can put a plaster over it by removing one team, removing the funding, changing this, changing that, going down to two teams, and we may have some success. I thought Foxy brought up a good point on a different pod a couple of weeks ago. If we do chop it down to two teams, we're still going to be paying the same players that we think are not good enough now, but we're just going to be paying them slightly more money because they're in two teams. And they are the quote unquote best of the best or best of a bad bunch or whatever you want to look at. The investment needs to come underneath. The pro game needs investment, don't get me wrong. Yeah, we could do with some more marquee players. I don't think that necessarily the players that are there now need more money per se. We need to invest in marquee players and we need to invest in the talent coming through. Otherwise, we're going to end up in this vicious cycle um, ongoing.
I also think, just to talk about going down to two teams, is that it's just less opportunity. It's less opportunity for people coming through. It's less opportunity for those who are maybe late bloomers. Like there's so many issues with cutting it down. And as you said, it's not just for players themselves, it's for coaches, it's for referees to a certain extent, it's for, this is strange, but things like grounds people.
Mm.
We're going to go down to two grounds specifically. It's going to be all the match day stuff. Like, there's so many jobs that are going to be lost that aren't just players as well. Um, and it will kill two local economies.
Well, potentially more than that, because if you go down to two and you have that national campus,
Yeah,
it's all going to be centralized in that one place. So it'll only be that one area. And the chances are you won't have two teams worth of ground staff. You'll have one who's just constantly going around.
yeah.
So
It's it's just terrible. I don't love the national campus in the way that it's been
I
sort of
can
put
see
out.
how it would work, but I don't see how having the teams completely based there
Yeah,
benefits
that's the
it
part I don't
when
like.
you can drive from one side of Wales to the other in about 2 hours, 2.5, depending on traffic. Like it's not that insurmountable. Like it's more of an issue getting people from the north down to the south. In which case, actually, it might be worth having a northern hub anyway. In which case, as soon as you start doing that, you have more, and then you have accommodation. Instead of having offices for four teams really, if you have a men's and a women's, why not build some like dorms or something so that when you're getting people from a long way, they can stay at these camps
Yeah.
and they're not having to drive back and forth. Um, I mean, that is one of the things I was quite excited with Dave Reddin was, he was saying like, yes, the senior teams probably aren't going to improve as quickly as we like, but the proof is going to be in five years' time when if we can get the academy stuff. So he is focusing a lot on academy, which is what you'd hope from a guy whose background is in performance.
I agree with
So
that.
yeah. So I said I like the national campus. I can like if he had the national campus as sort of like an academy sort of thing,
Mm.
and then people, they whether they're in their regional pathways or their local clubs, and they all come in to both, and they do it there, and they're training. That I can see working, but I think as soon as you have two teams based in the same place, you might as well just call them A and B.
Yeah, and what happens when, you know, God forbid, the financial situation gets worse? Do they then split it so that the two teams, one of them has more than the other?
Yeah.
Like, do you just keep culling it?
Mm.
Yeah. Uh, It's not. I don't think it's the way forward. There needs to be some level of national academy, but there's nothing wrong with having the, the core group of players that are in the 20s, 18s, 16s into down at Hensall, down the Vale to do
Yeah.
that sort of thing with them and improve the coaching at their regions and or schools or colleges.
Mm.
You know, I
Yeah,
think,
that's where the investment needs to go.
yeah, because we've won, in the professional era, Wales have won what? Not in the professional era, in the Six Nations era. So what's that? 25 years. We've won 6 titles.
Yeah.
26.
Um,
What's it? It's joint most titles with France,
yeah.
I think. Oh no, sorry.
So
It's joint most. We've got the joint most Grand Slams with France with 4, I think.
But on the flip side of that, the part of rugby that has been completely and always poorly financially supported has been women's rugby.
Yeah,
Never won once.
no,
Doesn't even come close.
no,
And you can look at the men's game and you can go like, well, this is quite. But if you actually just look at what's happened to the Wales women's game, going from being one of the better kind of club sides that were playing against English sides back in the 80s and 90s to being horrendous. And to be honest, it's the fault of the WRU. And you can easily see like this is exactly what's going to happen if the WRU kind of go with their plan of having two and having it all being centralised because it's what they did to the women.
yeah,
yeah,
it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy if it happens that way. I just think it's not completely broke. It just needs fixing a little bit. The elephant in the room is that everything was underfunded for a period of time. Plus, we chucked all our eggs into the men's senior team basket, which reaped its rewards. Don't get me wrong, like I said, we won 6 titles, 4 Grand Slams. And the reality is what, since 2008, really, is it? Was our first one in first Six Nations we won? Since
Well, it's this
2008.
we had the 2005, which is probably more of
2005
a
we run it, yeah.
fluke. I'd say that was more, except whereas I think 2008 was that period of sustained, at least competitiveness, if not success.
But if you take, yeah, so even if you take it back to 2005, though, that narrows it down to, the last 20 years even, where we've had that level of success. So, we can get back to that. We just need to make sure that we invest in the foundations properly. And there's a couple of things I'll bring up in terms of that sort of pathway when we talk about, community clubs, etc. In our little community corner segment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said going back with the women's game, the thing that annoyed me, and it's we discussed about it when the consultation first came out, that clearly it's been written with two clubs in mind, and then everything else was of an afterthought for the senior teams. There was no allowance to say this is what will happen with the women's if we have X or Y. Even if it is, even if all of them are, we're going to have two women's teams on this budget, this budget, this budget. There will be a tender process, and
Mm.
whether it's the Scarlets and Dragons, for example, because they've got their own grounds, they can. Although Dragons don't have primacy, I don't think it's a weird one because Newport County have to have primacy for football reasons. Or if they turn around and say, well, Cardiff Athletic Club are more than happy to have,
Yep.
well, they might have to be the Gwalia Cardiff Lightning or something just to stay there. But if that's the plan, then it'd be nice to know
In terms of the
because
whole sort of project rebuild, do you think that they are, um, looking at it from looking at it the wrong way? They're sort of looking at it, to keep the house analogy going. They're looking at it from the chimney pot down or the top of that pyramid down, whereas in actual fact, we should be looking at it from the foundations up. So what have we got wrong in terms of pathway, coaching? Again, we can discuss this in community corner later, but like my boys in year 11 in school, no rugby in school, in primary school now. Um, I had that, sort of 20 odd years ago. I most certainly played a fair amount of rugby in primary school. Um, so that's all gone, that's eroded. The pathway, the EPP doesn't start until 15, 16 in year 11, or whatever it is. That's a big gap.
I know.
We're missing out a little bit. So maybe we're focusing on, even if you kept the same poor budgets in place for the regions now, they'd still sort of be hanging around for the next couple of years, whilst we could be pushing, we could be underpinning our foundation somewhat.
Mm.
I don't know. It's open to discussion, really. Maybe we need to do both and meet in the middle. I'm not
I
sure, but
think they're making sort of long-term decisions, but being very, very short-sighted with it. So they're trying to come up with what will get us there the quickest without actually looking at like a long-term plan. Like, yeah, if you combine the Ospreys forwards with the Scarlets backs, which I'm sure somebody has brought up in a meeting, they'll be like, oh, that's a complete team. Yeah, it might get us some wins and yeah, we might be more competitive, but that's not actually going to suit or do anything for the national team in the long run. Um, so yeah, I think you're right. I think they are just so narrow-minded. And considering that they've had new people come in that are supposed to help and supposed to do this, they've come in and basically picked up whatever bit of paper was already on the desk rather than actually looking holistically at the whole thing. And they are just looking at the pro level and not really anything below. And then obviously Belinda Moore walked in and they realised, oh shit, we do actually have a women's team.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, you only have to look at how the regions are coping with the budgets as they are. See, we probably another million off just having those few extra bodies in camp from being competitive throughout. Cardiff shown that their academies pretty much think Cardiff needs some help developing like that type five forwards. Yes, we're bringing it through the likes of Teddy Williams, but and we're brilliant at converting, making set passable hookers with second rows. But Ospreys got them going around their ears. Don't know how, don't know why, but great. Endless that. We, you know, maybe we need to stop saying, oh, well, so and so's a boy from Pontyclun, he has to go here. He's so and so's from Portwelly or something. That's where I can see the whole idea
Yeah, but
of the original plan of the PRA 25 of let's share that out. But
yeah, we
we
can.
show
I see what you're saying. We can share those resources in that, for example, the Dragons have got an abundance of back rowers coming through. Um, if you take Minto, Bedell, etc., all coming through at the same time. Woodman's not particularly old. They've all come through at the same time. Well, if there is a region struggling for back rowers, and we've got a number of young back rowers, for example, that are, ultimately then struggling for game time due to the senior players in the squad, then let's share the wealth. Alternatively, if you're struggling for second rows and the Ospreys have got them coming out of their heroes, then share those around. It's beneficial probably beneficial for everyone. It's certainly including the players, and I go back to the thing that Dave Reddin said that he's sort of peddling back on, like you mentioned earlier on, Harley, that we want to be top five consistently in the men's and women's game. Well, we can only control our controllables. We can't control what any other nation's going to do. We can't control what South Africa and New Zealand and France are doing, for example. So why are we worrying about it? We can only control what's happening within our game. So
Mm.
that and we'll top five could be a real possibility regularly for the men, for example. But alternatively, if another group of brilliant players comes through in South Africa, France, New Zealand, and Ireland, and all of a sudden, like we know Italy's 20s have been much better recently, and they've
Mm.
got a pipeline of players, well, maybe for the next couple of years it's not possible to be top five. But we can still be competitive. We can only control what we can control. And the rest of it is out of our hands, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think if you've got a really good now 16, 17, 18-year-old, they're not going to come to their best for 6 years, are they?
No.
However good they are, Tom Boyd, for example, he was great the weekend, but he's got a lot to learn.
Mm.
So he's 19 years old. Give the lad a chance.
Mm.
The one for me that'll be interesting on that uh, on the pathway is the lad down at the Scarlets, Carwyn Leggett Jones, because I
Yeah.
think we've lacked a 10. Our conveyor
Mm.
belt of number tens have stopped since
Mm.
Stan Bigger was probably the last one. I think he may be the next one, having seen clips of him play, watched him in the college finals, etc. The guy can clearly do it all. Now, how we manage him and his development is key because he's clearly an extremely talented youngster. And ultimately, if he's not the incumbent for, touch wood, uh, injuries pending, etc., then he should be the number 10 incumbent for a number of seasons when he does eventually get his chance. But how do we get him there? Getting him there
Yeah.
is the key in the first place. How do we keep improving those skills? Where does he go to play rugby now? Where does he go and
Yeah.
get senior rugby? And so on and so forth. So it'll be interesting to watch his journey. And anyone out there who hasn't seen him, go and YouTube him. I would have thought his performance for Llandovery last season against who did play? Was it Coleg Cymoedd in the final or
I think so.
someone like
I
that?
could be wrong.
Where he was dropping goals from the 10 metre line down in the Principality at sort of 17 years
Dragons
of
could have
age.
done with him.
Yeah, yeah, he could have. Yeah, so it's players like him. We'll see how
Yeah.
good our development pathway actually is because we should be setting him up for many years of future success.
And I think as well, it's not that we're looking at players like him to be like this golden child that's going to come through and be like excellent. No, it's how do we make a pathway to make sure that that player excels? Because
Yeah,
what we've done in the past with Sam Costello, he again was a very, very promising young 10. He had highlights reels up the wazoo, and he's never really hit his kind of his ceiling or his real heights because the the coaching hasn't been there and the guidance hasn't been there. So he hasn't really hit his potential. And we really don't want that to happen with the next generation, or we're just going to have a repeat of the current crop that we've got.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
And this is where I think again sharing coaching and experience will help.
Mm.
I say it's something that me and Hugh have always said is that Johan Lloyd and Sam Costello suffered so much at the Scarlets, not necessarily because Dwayne Peel's a bad coach. He's ostensibly not a bad coach, but because he's not a 10, he's a 9.
Mm.
And the best person to develop a young 10 is an older 10, which when you had Reece Patchell there
was fine.
was potentially good. But then, then the URC, not the URC, WRU cut our budget overnight and then we had to get shot. That buggers up. We had academy funding but cut. That's why Cardiff had to let go half their academy. That's why they couldn't compete with offers from Bristol Academy taking Sheedy to Clifton College and Gloucester Hartbury. That's where you end up losing these players.
Mm.
So, and that's one of the things that I think Cardiff's doing quite well now is they're working with these English private schools and colleges to try and retain them on a dual basis so that we're not losing them, or we've at least got to, you go away for a few years, we'll support you wherever you need, but come back to us, finish your academy and university and whatever. So that's where I think we can do more.
Because the education offering over the other side of the bridge, isn't it? When I went to Clifton College on the same basis, right? Came to watch me play rugby. Do you want to come to school? I'm from Blaenau Gwent, the most underprivileged county in the UK at some periods, no doubt, in the bottom 5 now. Still, probably, and proudly so. A Blaenau Gwent boy. But when they come and go, do you want to go to school? But it's 30 grand a year. But you don't have to pay. Just come to school, play rugby. You go, oh, what do I do? Do I stay in Nantiglow Comprehensive School? Or do I go to Clifton College and have a private education for the rest of my school life? Have brilliant, fantastic sporting facilities, play high-end schoolboy rugby, have the best coaching, have the best facilities, have the best everything. And this was going on 20 years ago when I was in school, so it's not a new thing. So it was happening then. So I can't understand how it's still happening now. Why are we not going to Monmouth Boys School, Christ College, Brecon, Llandovery College, the Llandaff Cathedral School, etc., the private educations, because parents ultimately want the best education for their kids because one rugby injury and your career's done, and we all know rugby's not football. It's not about earning millions and millions of pounds. You need some level potentially of education or something at the end of it. Why are we not trying? If education's the driving factor for parents, where I want my son or my daughter to go and get A levels and so on and so forth, and have a good crack at a good university, why are we not making links with these establishments?
I agree with all that, Dan, but there are a group of parents, group of kids who want Welsh medium education as well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And so we need to have a balance there that the similar type of opportunities are offered across Wales.
But they must,
Yeah.
I agree. Whatever the schools are, they don't have to be the ones that I've just named, and they must be Welsh medium, private schools, particularly in North Wales, I would have thought. And I'm not saying private schooling is the be all and end all. Look, I had the best of both worlds. I went to a state comprehensive school in Nandy Glow where there was 35 kids in a class, and then went to Clifton College where there was five of us in a class.
Mm.
You know,
I think, I guess what we were talking about is like we need somewhere in Wales that is providing an academy structure and an education um, for male and female players from whatever age it is. And those exist in England, but they don't necessarily exist or like at large in Wales. And actually, if we're looking at the WRU and where they're putting their money into an academy system and into a national centre, actually, would it be better off them having a school for the promising athletes? There's
and
plenty of them nearby. Like near where I live, you've got St George's, which used to be with Saracens. The Saracens now have their own school, and
Yeah.
that's where a lot of the kids go if they're picked up. Like those places exist. Hartpury College, whatever. Like, actually, would it be better off if we had something like that?
Yeah.
and I know we've got the college league now, College Camoedd, Coleg Gwent, so on, so on and so
Cigar,
forth.
cigar, yeah.
Coleg Cigar,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah.
Mm.
So I know we've got that. I just wonder whether it's, maybe it'll take a little while to grow. I don't know. On a personal note, and I don't know whether there are the parents who have got kids, like Sheedy's parents, for example, whether he was the same, but I probably would have left Nanty Glow Comprehensive School if I'd have stayed on through sixth form with nothing because I was a bit of a class clown.
Yeah.
I didn't want to work, and I was probably really immature with that. All I wanted to do was play rugby. I was playing age grade rugby for Wales at the time. That's all I cared about was playing rugby. Whereas when I went into Clifton, it was like, well, you know, you got to get your A levels. Don't play rugby on the weekend if you're failing school. So I needed that
Yeah.
environment rather
Focus.
focus, yeah, rather than I wonder whether some of the Coleg Gwent is very much you know still there. You got to get yourself to your lessons and so on and so forth. Whereas I was very much pinned down, and it was I had to conform
Yeah.
with school in order to
Play
to
rugby.
to play rugby and keep my
Mm.
athletic sort of stuff
Mm.
going. Maybe and maybe that's the balance that needs striking a little bit more with probably boys and girls that are sort of 16 to 18 and at that sort of boisterous, we know better
Mm.
age in their life. I don't know. Maybe we need to offer both
Mm.
that sort of partnership with the private schools and the partnerships with your Coleg Gwent, your Camoids, and
Mm.
so on and
Mm.
so forth. I don't know. There seems to be a balance to be struck there. It's
So
interesting topic.
I think debates about education, like how we deal with the education in Wales at the moment, is that's a podcast in itself. So
Yeah, you're probably right.
you guys are all happy. I think if we leave the part of the
Yeah.
WRG
Talk about some
chat now,
rugby.
we'll get onto some actual rugby. Before we get onto the rugby, though, if you are enjoying the podcast, please do subscribe, share links with your friends, comment down below, or interact with us all on socials at the pod. Um, Big message from our sister channel, the Global Game Line. They have just broken 800 followers. They are aiming to get to 1,000 by the end of the month. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe. You get to hear and see more of the lovely Hattie on the Women's Rugby Treehouse. We've got pods on American rugby, which again, some of the women's are on the wind down, but they will be coming back. We've also got the provincial pod. I can't remember what his actual title is, but that's for the representatives of the Irish team. The United Rugby Rewind, which is kicking into full gear now. And we also have the Mall Street Journal, which is an American podcast, which I have to say twice because David, just to make sure that our lovely friend of the pod, David, hears that. And there's also the Bit of an Animal pod, which is focusing on the South African sides. I said, and now we're going to go back to the rugby, and we're going to start not in chronological order with Nick, but we're going to start with Hattie. So, can you just explain for those who aren't aware what the fuck happened with Scarlets this weekend?
So, you may have heard there was a big, big storm. And the big, big storm meant that planes no fly. So, essentially, lads got on the plane in Bristol, tried to land in Dublin, and got turned away. There's a lot of like additional rumours. We won't get into them because some of them really have no no truth to them. Some of them probably do. But they ended up being stuck in Manchester. We saw a couple of the players posting that they were stuck there. They got on the plane at 1:30 in Bristol, and they were in Manchester, stuck on the plane still at gone 11 o'clock at night. I believe they finally got off at like 1. There was no water, there was no food. And I believe, according to the URC, you have to be in the country or at the venue or whatever within 24 hours of kickoff. So they obviously weren't going to make that. And so at 11 o'clock the night before the game, it was postponed. However, another game was postponed that weekend, which was Edinburgh versus Ulster, because of poor weather again. So two from the weekend were postponed. Haven't had any updates about when it's going to be played, whether it will be a 0-0 draw, whether it will be a 28-28 draw. Don't know.
Or minus 10 points to the Ospreys. For the Scarlets, I mean, sorry.
I think minus 10 points for the Ospreys.
That sounds fair, yeah.
Freudian slip.
Indeed, indeed. So that'll teach me to be clever.
Yeah,
I said,
minus 10 points for the Ospreys.
I can't remember the exact thing. I'm certain it was pre-COVID, but there was an issue with I believe it was an Ospreys Ulster game. I can't remember which round. I think it was too cold or something. It was frozen pitch sort of thing, and that was declared as a 0-0 draw, and that was sort of the precedent for now. But I think with COVID cancellations and things, they sort of eased more into the things. The problem is these games are likely to be played during the international blocks. Which I feel is probably going to affect Scarlett's more than, well, maybe not. It'll certainly affect Scarlett's backline more than it will.
Yeah, and although having said that, our team for this weekend that we'd put out was poor. So really,
conspiracy.
it's not a conspiracy. Do you know what? The injury list came out, and I put it in the Scarlett's chat, and I was like, guys, it's not looking good. And then the actual team sheet came out, and I was like, oh, it's not looking good. So I am slightly thankful of that, but I mean, it now just means we go into next weekend undercooked even more. So yeah, it's all a bit pants.
Dan, off here, I'm going to leave it for off here, but the Cardiff chat had an interesting thing about the Cardiff Ebbw Vale cancellation, which if you haven't seen what that is on the Twitters and stuff, the post down on got blown down. Yeah, there's someone suggesting Fishy had sawn through one of the posts just so he could wait until he's actually got a full team to select from. Right, so I think our Scarlet's well and truly sorted. So Nick, we will go to you now.
Okay.
Talk us through Stormers versus Ospreys.
Well, I'll start with the positives. Plenty of positives come out the first half. Our defence and line was much better than it had been against the Bulls. We definitely had a plan to kick a bit more, which brought Cassend into the game, and he was very good. The big concern was the penalties that we gave away at scrum time. And, one thing we say was we were talking about the quality of teams in South Africa. We're talking these South African teams with their probably third, fourth, fifth choice props, and they're still pushing us around the field. How they do it, but I suppose it's a learning experience for our players. But that's certainly an area, and I'm talking about the Ospreys now. We need to improve on our scrummaging. I thought Moriarty had a good game. I thought he did well playing number 8. He tidied up a lot of crap, and he was very physical, as you would expect, both sides of the ball. And I think if he carries on like this and he stays fit, I think he probably will come into Steve Tandy's thoughts for the November test, because at the end of the day, he's an experienced Welsh player and a British Lion. I thought Hardy was excellent. Took his 2 tries well. He had an indifferent summer tour for Wales. Copped a lot of stick, but I thought he kicked accurately, and he was physical over the ball as well. I think he won a turnover or not, or maybe even 2. So we went in at half time, well in the game. And I thought, oh, yeah, if we can keep this physicality going, we'll be fine. They came out, I think that they're rocking up their ass, and they attacked our breakdown. They forced penalties, and once the South African team gets going forward, and their replacements had a really positive impact on the game. Our replacements, maybe with the exception of Morse, didn't really add much A couple of their tries a little bit lucky. Another day the bounce the ball would have gone another way. But no complaints really. Stormers are worthy winners, and if they can continue that type of performance, I think they'll be top 8, maybe even top 4. Just to finish another positive, I thought we showed a lot of character right at the end when they were going for the bonus point try. We kept them out for the last 5 minutes or so. So overall, pretty much what I expected. In my own mind, I'd put us down for 1 point out of these 2 games. So if I was given a grade, a sort of C plus, B minus. But now what's important, we are back at home, and these next 2 games, trying to get something out of those two, at least one win, certainly, and then something out of the Glasgow game, and I'd be fairly comfortable the way we started the season.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with your uh, sort of summation of the game there, and I agree with you on the Moriarty thing as well. I think that sort of that hard edge, that tough as teak, uncompromising edge is something that Wales has been lacking. Just horrible bloke to play against. You see him pick up from the base of the scrum and he's dropping a shoulder into the flanker coming across and just just nasty. In a good way on a rugby field like, and I think that's exactly what Wales needs. So as it stands, based on these first 2 games, I think he'd be marching his way back into my autumn international squad. No doubt about it.
I think to quote Gav on Dragon's Lair, he's a proper 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know he spent a lot of time playing as 8. That was just because without Faletau, we've just really struggled for 8. Whereas I feel like with Wainwright, we do have more of an 8 now. And actually having Moriarty in just 6 and just be like, go be a bastard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
60 minutes of just being a bastard.
Yeah.
Don't care how you do it. If it's carrying into the 10 space or if it's chopping the 9 down as soon as he steps away from a ruck, just be a bastard. Have fun with it. Not Argentina away fun, but have that much sort of fun. We don't want him red carded.
No, but
I don't know.
sorry, Nick. I was just going to say, I think we've lacked that edge. Someone who plays, right up and on the line at times. In terms of, we saw what when the red mist descends with Moriarty, what happens can happen in Argentina, but I don't dislike that. Yeah, okay, you got dealt without in Argentina, and rightly so. But you need a bit of that. And previously, we've had those players in the Welsh squad, the likes of your Hibbards and your Alan Wynne Jones. Everything's a competition to them. Every collision's a physical confrontation. We really lack that. I think in the last couple of seasons. So throwing someone like him back in the mix will 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 help us no end. Whether that's starting or even maybe coming off the bench, and it just bolsters our back row options. So yeah, good on him. He's had a good start to life back in Wales or in
And
South
he's also
Africa.
and he's also decent line-up forward. I think
Yeah,
he's underrated that
yeah.
area. And I have to shout out to Harry Deves, 27 tackles I think he made in 2 games. He's a real nuisance, and he's been superb. Yeah, so overall, it's pretty much what I expected, and I don't think we picked up too many injuries, which is always a massive bonus. Hopefully, we got some players to come back into the consideration in the next few weeks. So yeah, let's see where we go in the next few weeks.
And absolute best bonuses, playing the same away games as Leinster, you came out 14 points better off and weren't nilled in either game.
Indeed.
So, it's official. Ospreys are better than Leinster. Move on. So those 2 games were very affected by storm burns. My very, very tenuous link between the two there. So let's move on to 2 games that were where I think drop goals are probably one of the things that
I don't know. It was
talking points of both games.
fairly wet and not mucky because it's a 4G pitch, but it was fairly wet, the Dragons game.
I obviously it was effective strong. You don't ruin my link, all right? The link for this is going into it is about drop goals.
Okay, drop goals.
Bloody Turks can't take them anywhere. That's why we gave you Pontcannon, just to leave us alone. Right, so Dan, Dragons. So a I imagine if we was talking just before the game, a draw against Sharks, you'd have taken. But that last 5 minutes or so, I mean, it must have been painful by the end.
Well, I suppose in terms of the Dragons game, we should start at the end. That would be the appropriate place to start. And for the listeners, they probably know by now that the Dragons and the Sharks shared a 17-all draw in what could only be described as astro-biblical weather conditions down at Rodney on Friday night. I mean, the weather was atrocious, wasn't it? In fairness, there's a good playing surface down there, Hattie alluded to. Um, but the wind and the rain was shocking. And I know they're from South Africa, but the reality is when you're bringing over a pack of massive men playing in the rain and the horrible conditions kind of suits you a little bit because you know there's going to be a lot of set piece, a lot of scrum, a lot of line-up mauling and a lot of pick and go efforts, but we'll get into that. Um, as we move on into this now. But just to give you a couple of little bit of stats for you. So it's 50-50 on territory and 50-50 on possession throughout the game. However, the last 10 minutes of that fixture on Friday night, the possession stats are in favour of the Dragons, 87% to 13%. And we did, for a long period of time, batter away with 14 men because not so super Chrissy Coleman had taken a period in the bin by now for repeated scrum infringements, but I'll get on my scrum soapbox in a little minute. And, everyone will be talking about, and social media has been lit up, that they didn't take the shot at goal, the drop goal attempt, which,
Twice.
well, on how many, you say twice is probably ample opportunity where we're battering away at the try line to
Yeah.
pop a
Well,
goal over.
I meant to write down, it's like he pulled back, was in the pocket once, and then he came out of the pocket
Yeah.
and then he went back in.
At one point, we had Angus O'Brien and Tina Stabir in the pocket. The two of them were there, and we kept battering away, and we've gone side to side, and then we're back in front of the post again. And if we'd have scored that try at the end, everyone would have been, we wouldn't be talking about the drop goal. But alas, we didn't. There was a knock on, and we are talking about the drop goal. And ultimately, this should have been popped over, shouldn't it? There was ample time. We'd narrowed their defence up through pick and go, which meant that they didn't have a massive rush line to charge him down. And at one point, he was, the ruck and the phase play was on the 5 metre line, and he was stood sort of nearly 20 metres away, just to pop a simple drop goal over was Tina's to be, and that call didn't come. So there was definitely a bit of a leadership issue, I would say, and a game management issue at the end of that. And for me, it was. 4 points lost rather than 2 points gained on the Dragons front. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I did
I
say it on the
actually,
pod,
oh, sorry, Harley,
but
you go.
I don't get the decision to pull for the try when they just needed to win. There wasn't a bonus point on the
I
line.
agree. No, I agree. And
And but then, and you could see Tinas was doing the right thing. He was calling for it. I'm surprised a player of Rodri's experience didn't just. I don't know if it's just because since Sam Davis left, Rodri's basically had to babysit. And I feel like he's almost has no trust in the man outside of him.
Mm.
And that's what leads him to do just the wildest path. Because Angus O'Brien's a guy he knows and he's someone he's played with. So he's gone for that call. Whereas he
yeah,
doesn't
it
really
should have
need to
come.
be a.
We were in their mind for 3 or 4 minutes, but that should have been called much sooner. And alas, it wasn't to be. But ultimately, the losing streak has been broken. We didn't lose the fixture, and it was 2 points, I suppose, and they were well deserved. I thought we were more than in the game. Set piece, we struggled a little bit at scrum time, but I'll get to that now. In terms of the Sharks, I thought. Like I said, I think those conditions suits a big, massive pack like that. I thought Hendricks sort of marshalled them round at nine as well, pretty well. And the key for me with these big South African packs, especially in conditions like Friday night, is not letting them in. And once
Mm.
we let them in, the 22, that was it. It was only a matter of time before the pick and go, um, especially the second try, just after we'd scored as well, really, the pick and go. And eventually, you're not going to stop men of that size, that close to the line, running out carries. against weak shoulders. It was, a war of attrition to keep them out. And like we mentioned last week, you're almost as well off letting them dot it down in the corner and starting again because you're not stopping them once again. So the whole thing is keeping them out of there. And then, so from the Dragons' perspective, when you kick the ball out on the full from a restart 3 times, you're letting them straight back in. When your set piece is failing, scrum time, albeit I thought it was reffed shockingly badly. And I'm not being, it's not the ref's fault that we didn't win the game, but we conceded, we just have a look, on the stats. Penalties, we conceded 15 penalties, 1 yellow card. The bulk of those were scrum penalties. And I thought for the entire game, they loose head, tried to scrimmage in at an angle and scrimmaged up. You need to scrimmage square at all times. Um, and I thought they got away with one at scrum time a little bit, especially when we had Wyn Jones and Rob Hunt on the field. If you notice, Rob Hunt is trying his a tight head's job is to try and pin that loose head down in place, to anchor that scrum. But their loose head, the amount of times he stood up, I don't know how he kept getting away with it. The tight head doesn't want to stand up. Tight head doesn't want to stand up at all. The only one that wants to stand up is the loose head. So why are we getting penalised for it and not them? Um, and the prime example for me on that is when you go back and we had that unfortunate try disallowed where Wyn Jones knocked the ball on, picking and going close to the line before Rio Dyer dotted it down, and the play was called back. The resulting scrum from that, if you go back and have a look at it, the loose head stands up and their tight head loses his bind. 2 infringements at the same scrum, but yet the Dragons got penalised. I thought I'm not blaming the referee here. Referee doesn't miss tackles. The referee doesn't doesn't drop the ball and so on and so forth. But I thought his refereeing of the scrum was absolutely shocking. And there was at one point where he calls over the skipper and says there's too many scrum penalties. Now, if I was the captain, I'd have been going, okay, well, what are they for? Because I don't think he could have told you. All right, yeah, we've had a load of scrum penalties, but why? What's the infringement? Because I genuinely don't think he could have told you. I thought he was way out of his depth, and his management of the scrum area was poor. But there you go. And ultimately, that was the undoing of the Dragons because we had a couple of times where we kicked the ball out on the full from restarts, for example. Then we multiply that with scrum penalties, and before you know it, they're back in our 22, and we're defending for our lives on the line. It's only a matter of time where you're going to give into that war of attrition. So. uh, Yes, when we swapped our props, they did have the upper hand on us, there was no doubt. But I thought for the first 50 minutes before we made those changes, some of those scrum penalties were very, very harsh. Um, on the plus side for the Dragons, I thought in the weather conditions, Tina Stabia and Rodri controlled the game pretty well. Our kicking game was pretty good. I thought the forwards carried the ball much better again. We're doubling up collisions. We're starting to get some gain line. And we saw Mr. Paya in midfield for the first time. And what a revelation. Most line breaks in the game. The tip on after that line break for Angus to dot down, I thought was fantastic. It's just rotten Dragon's luck again in it that he's gone off with a suspected broken arm or broken wrist because for me it was night and day between the Ulster performance in the centres, and that's not having a go at young Johnny West, young Westwood, Joe Westwood. Johnny's his dad. It's I just thought he was physical, got good hands, run good lines. How much easier must it be for Angus O'Brien to go, not Angus O'Brien, sorry, and Iron Owen to go, oh, you go tip that on, and you got some big South Sea Islander, you know, ploughing through midfield. So I thought he was really, really good. I thought Finney and Anisi as well when he did get a ball in broken play was good. I think he's going to be a good signing for us. The weather conditions were crap for wingers and outside backs, weren't they? But he showed up well when he had to. Defense, I thought, was better on the whole. We seemed more connected. We had more physicality in midfield as well, so that was better. Wainwright, again, I thought Wainwright was quality. Took his try really well. Carried for metre after metre, love him all game. The scoop at the base of the scrum in that final play as well when the scrum's going back. That was world class stuff. He's a top player, comfortable at 6 or 8. and we'll likely see him start in the autumn internationals. I would have thought if he's fit, because I think he'd be at home in any team. And I thought again, Levi Douglas added something when he come on. Big physical man, likes whacking people. One more do you want off from someone coming off the bench? So yeah, on the whole, I thought it was a sort of C plus performance from the Dragons again, maybe a B minus. Last season, I think we'd have lost our fixture, when in actual fact, we should have won it. It's just a game management thing at the end. But I don't know what you guys think. On the whole, I think the last two Dragons performances have been much better. We deserve more out of both games. And hopefully, we still haven't seen Seb Davis yet. We still haven't seen Thomas Young yet. Hopefully we can get Paya back pretty quickly as well, depending on the result of this scan. I am going to injury update on that yet. But on the whole, I thought there were more positives than the negatives. The negative for me was the fact that our game management at the end was poor. Other than that, I thought the Dragons were well in that game, and I got the stats in front of me now, and I would say that they match that. We had more line breaks, 5-2. We had more carries, 93 to 71. Um, on the whole, I thought we did particularly well. I think they tackled more than us as well. Tackles made, yeah, 96 Dragons, 131 Sharks, and they missed 28 of their tackles to the Dragons 9. So our defense was much improved this week, only 9%. 91% tackle completion, only 9% missed. So, on the whole, I think it was a much improved performance again from the Dragons, and we stuck in the fight, which is the important thing.
I think I was actually really, really impressed with the Dragons. I obviously it was quite late on Friday, so I watched it back again earlier, just the highlights and then the last 10 minutes. And I was like, oh no, I am. It wasn't delusion on Friday. They did actually play quite well. Um, the only thing that really, really got me was at the end. I was like, they've just forgotten how to win. Like it's been so long since they've won. They've just forgotten how to close a game out. Um, and there was that mistrust between 9 and 10, which I think probably caused it. Obviously, you've got a 10 that's new to you, but you've got a 9 who's been there a while, and I think he's just forgotten. I guess I think it's like how to close that game out and the decision to make. And it was not, although it stopped raining and it wasn't very windy at the end of the game, the ball was wet, the ground was wet, the players themselves were damp. It's not the time to be throwing out loose passes. Um, and to be picking and going so much, I think was a risky choice. When actually it was probably perfect conditions to go for a drop goal.
And
Um,
you'd think as well, when you're being a professional team in an elite sport, that you'd have that call once you got in there. Look, you prepare for every eventuality. Look, if in any game this season we are drawing or we're 2 points behind and we're in this position and the clock's red or close to being red, this is how we execute a drop goal attempt.
mm.
Um, and ultimately, can you blame Rodri Williams for it all? I don't know. Like Tinas to be as an experienced fly half. I played with it. He should be screaming for that ball, shouldn't he? When he's in the pocket, he should be screaming, "I want the ball! I want the
You
ball! I
do
want the
have
ball!"
Wales internationals in there as well, and there are forwards who could be like.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying Rodri deserves all the blame, but at the end of the day, Jamie brings up the point. Dragons there. Rodri didn't look behind him once. He
No,
didn't even look to see what was being said, and that.
He was playing the game that was in front of him and completely unaware of everything else. He was just going, okay, I've got a pod of forwards. I've got a pod of forwards. I've got a pod of forwards. Oh, there's an option out here if I go for a long flat pass. Like that was what he didn't. He was like, it wasn't. Oh, where's the 10? Like it was just very peculiar. And the other thing I thought was kind of odd as well was like the reaction from the coaching box. They were so calm in a situation where I don't know. I would have expected coaches to have a bit more emotion.
yeah. I wonder, but like having watched it again, obviously I didn't catch it live, so I watched the game back, sort of Sunday, and it must have gone 20 plus phases, and I wonder whether the boys are there thinking, look, if we keep knocking away at the door, he's going to stick his arm out for an advantage. And it never came. So, you need some sort of policy where you go, right, when we're in here and the clock's in the red, if after 5 phases, 6 phases, even if it's 10 phases, whatever it is, we need to work our way back to right in front of the sticks, and we're going to pop it over. So as a game manager, ultimately your game drivers and your quarterbacks on the day, your 9 and your 10s, the forwards are going to be doing what they were told. I would have thought someone was calling those plays to play around the corner, etc. But you are right, Nick. You know, you got Wyn Jones, who's a British Lion who came back on. You got the club captain in the second row. You got Aaron Wainwright, who's a Welsh international. There's plenty of people, plenty of experience in that team to be going. No, no, we're gonna, we're gonna drop a goal here. But it never happened. But I would have been more disappointed if we were a point down and it never happened. So at least we took something from the game. We're above Leinster in the league, and ultimately I thought we were good value for those 2 points as well. But for me, it was 2 points lost rather than 2 points gained.
I would say that it does kind of feel better that it happened in the second game of the season, that they can hopefully learn from this because they seem to have learned from last week. They have definitely learned from last year. So hopefully they take that on board and they're like, actually, we didn't have a plan. Our 9 and 10 were not communicating. Our leadership was not stepping up. And moving forward, they make those changes.
Yeah, and I will look after the boys a bit in the front row here. I genuinely don't think that the scrum was ref well. I genuinely don't
And
think
it's the
it
worst
was.
conditions to be roughing in it. It's worst conditions to be doing a scrum in. It's raining, it's wet, and you're on 4G.
Not sure Banks
I'm not sure
is
it could get
4G.
any
It's a
worse.
weird.
It's
It's a
a
bit like
It's
the
a high. It's a
It's
hybrid.
it's a
hybrid.
hybrid grass.
it's
It's
not
quite similar
proper
to the Principality.
grass.
It's
It's
a,
It's
not
not proper
proper.
pass because you
Because the football
won't get
player there.
Roger Bennett parade turns into the brewery field in proper grass. So that there's a bit of plastic. It's a bit like the Principality pitch.
There's no
But
mud
I agree.
though.
I it's one of these things you see in rugby a lot. Refs don't look at individual scrums. They seem to have a
Mm.
perception of a scrum, which is why it's very hard for a prop who's had a couple of bad games to shake those bad games, even if they have ostensibly approved. I don't know the answer for that. Maybe we need to do some. Maybe URC need to put their refs through unconscious bias training or something. I
yeah,
I
but
don't know.
but but
It was
I was
very much
starting.
like the referee was expecting the Sharks to be dominant and therefore rewarding that.
Yeah, but I'm
I
sorry. When you look, and I'll go back to this, right? The loose head, right? Again, Rob Hunt's job is to anchor that scrum down. He's a tight head prop. He's taking weight from their one and their two. He doesn't want to be in the air. He doesn't want to be standing up at all. No, the loose head must be driving up, must be coming up in order to pop him out of a scrum. It cannot be legal. Physics deny it, surely. It cannot be legal. He has to be coming underneath him at an angle in order to pop him up, which is illegal, or actively driving up. And if you go and watch some of those close-ups of those scrums, for me, their loose head is the one committing the infringement, where you can actively see Rob Hunt trying to anchor his right arm down to cornerstone that scrum for the Dragons. And I just think it was ref poorly. Again, this though is I think we lack a little bit of leadership because captain should have been in a ref's ear going, well, what do we need to do now then? For me, he's scrummaging up, he's scrummaging in, he's not at the right angle. We're not doing enough for that, I don't think, in the ref's ear going, come on, ref, how come it's us all the time? So yeah, and if we'd have took some of those penalties away, ultimately though, when Chrissy Coleman come on, he got absolutely hosed a couple of times. There's no doubt about it. So I think Chrissy will have him maybe one and done on the cap front.
Yeah, but I do feel like he got he. I know Chrissy isn't the strongest scrummer anyway, but the damage had already been done because the ref had made his mind up that the Sharks loose head was dominant. Wrongly, I agree. I fully agree with you, Dan. It just everything, even what they tell you to look for in the picture, because all refs are looking for an elbow on the loose head. I don't. You didn't even have that. But as soon as that's in his head, that's it. Then and we've seen it countless times for Wales, other teams. Even when you can see, Andrew Porter used to get away with bloody murder and being 90 degrees, but because the refs had it in an idea that I don't know, I don't want to pick on him, but he suffered from it. But like Reece Carey was considered a poor scrummager, so as soon as a scrum went down in Wales Island, oh, it's Reece Carey's fault. Not even the problems aren't even on that side; it's on the opposite side. But and it's wrong. 100%. I'm just saying I don't know how you solve. That's the problem. If the refs aren't going to look at scrums properly,
Yeah,
at the very least we can do is make them go into an open mind and saying, okay, maybe we're not going to just assume Team A is going to beat Team B scrum, just as a starting point, because at least might make them look to see what the issue is.
yeah, and there's a lot of dark arts in the scrum, but to anyone listening now, go back to that Dragons game. Fast forward it. I think you can get it on the iPlayer. Fast forward it to just after the Dragons have that try disallowed for the knock on from Wyn Jones, and then watch that scrum. And for me, that epitomised the whole game. There are two infringements at that scrum from their loose head, the Sharks' loose head, and whereby he's standing up. Yeah, he's standing up. The loose head's standing up, and the tight edge grip goes. He comes straight off the shirt. Um, and it's a penalty against the Dragons. So I don't understand it. Maybe it's the sort of thing that the TMO needs to be looking at. Not stopping play for it, but before the scrums go. And look, I've just looked over the last scrum. You need to keep an eye on Sharks one. He's going in at an angle. Because I do get from the ref's perspective as well. He's been running around, he's knackered, he's tired, he's looking for all sorts of things. It's a highly specialist position. If you've never played there, it's difficult to know what's going on in the dark arts of the front row. Maybe a little bit of help would go a long way. Would go a long way there as well, just to keep that communication up there. I don't know whether that's a possibility or just a pipe dream, but I felt they were a little bit harshly done by at scrum time, unnecessarily so. But like I said to you, it's not the ref's fault that they were in that position because the ref didn't kick the ball out on the full 3 times to give them field position back into the Dragons half. So yeah, but on the whole, a decent performance from the Dragons, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so if we move on to the last game of the weekend, that was Cardiff away to Munster in actually, compared to the rest of the weekend, fairly decent conditions at Thomond Park. Unfortunately, we lost 23-20 despite outscoring Munster 4 tries to 3. Once again, it's goal kicking affecting Cardiff. Jack Crowley got a lot of praise for taking the decision to go for the drop goal to move Munster from 5 to 8 points. Had Sheedy got a couple of those conversions or his own penalty attempt, and it's only, the drop goal would only taken to 3 or 4 points ahead, would he have still gone for it? And then would we have been able to hold them out? This just, those are hypotheticals. We don't know. Other than that, though, I thought Sheedy had an absolutely cracking game. Like, as long as he's not aiming for the sticks, the things he can do with his boot, even when he's got split second time, there's ones where he's had for I believe the second Tom Bowen try. He basically gets given the shittest ball I've ever seen a 9 pass attempt. Probably because I'm pretty sure it wasn't actually the 9 who passed it. I think it was on the forwards, and he sort of dribbles it just about gets it onto his boot into the corner, and then the commentators are going, "Why? How on earth did you do that?" Positives on this. This was a very even game actually between the two teams. There wasn't a lot in it. Possession was a bit here and there, but mostly the same. We had slightly more line breaks. I think Munster had slightly better line out success. There wasn't a huge amount to draw to. And I said last week I wanted 2 points from Thomond Park. We got 2 points. Similar to Dragons, I do feel like we've lost out on getting a 4-point win here, or 4 or 5-point win here. But I think the proof's going to be in the pudding now in these next 3 games. If we win these next 3, I don't think we're going to look at a narrow loss to Munster away too harshly. But we thought the same. A narrow loss in Benetton last season wouldn't affect us too much, and we missed out by a couple of points. So, usual suspects were brilliant. I think Teddy again. We talk about players who are combative and want everything to be a physical contest. Teddy does that. Alan Lawrence, another game where he's top carrier, up there with the tackles. I can't really fault too many people. Worrying Millard went off. More worrying was the ref didn't even there was no conversation about why he went off what looked like to me a classic tip tackle. I don't know if it's because his one leg, it wasn't
Mm.
both legs went over the horizontal, but it still looked, I thought they'd at least had a 2 seconds say, is that okay? But, there
Yeah,
didn't seem to be any of that.
with that tackle as well. I think it's the tackle I'm thinking of. There were a couple of people on social media who pointed out that like, are you not looking at the tackler's elbows because they were straight up in the air, and actually, like yeah, it's a tip tackle, but it's not like he's been tipped and or it's a regular tackle and the like just gravity has made it look like a tip tackle. Like elbows are
It does
straight
look like
up
he's
in the
driven
air.
down.
Yeah, like it wasn't an accident. Well, it might have been an accident, but like his elbows pointing at the ceiling.
Can
Yeah,
I say, sorry.
go ahead, Nick.
No, just obviously Tom Boyne was very good and shows the talent he is. But I thought Beath. It was nice to see Beaton. I know, Cardiff fans have wanted to see more of him. I thought he looked very good. I'd like hope he can stay fit and play a lot more this season because he seems to have a really good skill set and he's quite a big physical man as well. But I'd like to give a little shout out to the pride of Sunny Rill, Sam Wainwright. I know he's had a lot of stick, and I don't think Cardiff fans were particularly enamoured when they signed him as your third choice tight head. But he came on and he won the penalty that allowed the charity gain that led to the fourth try and hence the 2 bonus points. So I thought he did all right. I thought Mann was very good. He's a nasty, awkward player to against, and again, like in a similar younger Moriarty vein. And I thought the back row had a really good balance. Started with Mann in that type of mode, and then the Jacqueline threat from Dan Thomas was excellent. And obviously, I totally agree with what you said about Alan Lawrence as well. So I was very impressed with. Much as I dislike to say, as you know, Harley, to say this, I was very impressed with Cardiff on Saturday night.
Yeah, one of the things I think I was quite impressed with is years past in, so even like a season ago, like if you think back to that, to the Edinburgh game at the start of last season, it didn't used to take an awful lot to send us off the rails. Whereas I felt with this one, we were sticking, right, the kicking game wasn't going well, but we focused on what we were doing well, which was our defense was pretty good until we got to the line. And and we were, and the attacking kicking game, I think, is one of our strong points, and I think we do incredibly well. So I'm glad we just sort of focused on that, but also, our defense is getting better each time. It's getting we're losing Miller because I think he is the speed I think he's improving as a defensive 13 is actually quite astounding. It makes me wonder why some players take so long.
Mm.
But it's just nice seeing Josh Adams back. He's nowhere near as quick as he was when he started out, but he's making up with it by just knowing where to be and his aerial. He's still one of the best wingers aerially and defensively that Wales have produced in I don't know how long. And you've just got all these players who are sticking it, and you can see that they're all the senior players are being leadership. You see them with people arms around people's shoulders if they made a mistake. There's not, you know, you don't see heads going down, which I think is the most you can ask when you're going out for a miserable life in Limerick.
Yeah, I just reiterate what Nick has said. I think it's not a perfect start, obviously, because 10 points from 2 games would be the perfect start if you wanted to take it to that sort of nth degree. But on the whole, I think Cardiff should be pleased with their business in the first 2 games. Bonus point win at home. Um, Double bonus point losing a tight game out at Munster showed that they can, hang in there. And where are you next week? At home to Connacht?
Yeah, home to Connacht. This is the grudge match because no one beats the blue and black 6 times in a row.
Yeah, but there you go. Even if you pick up 4 points from that, what a brilliant start to the season. So yeah,
And then
I think it's been a good start for you guys.
I say then we got Dragons, which we don't
We'll
fear going to
lose.
Rodney Parade, isn't it? I mean, people keep saying this. I've yet to see enough from the Dragons to see because Dragons have played better than us before and had better teams, and we still somehow managed to stick a win. And
I
I feel
feel
like
like
I wonder if the Sharks game, like had they pulled out the drop goal and won against the Sharks, I'd find it a much more different proposition than basically doing the Dragons thing again.
so
And do you know
producer
what,
Lee
Dragons?
needs
If
to
you anyone
clip
from Dragons
this.
listening, because I know Carwin, clip that, stick it in the changing room because I would love you to prove me wrong. I'm fully intended to be at Dave Parade on that night. So come at a point and say, "Hi, you dickhead, you got it wrong." That's for the fans as well. Like,
I,
just seriously, if it gets you over the line, do you know, actually, I'd be quite happy to take this hit.
I'm down there as well for that game. So on the Friday night, so I'll hold my cardboard cutout. You know, Harley says.
Mug,
Yeah.
mug
We
Uh,
can
written over the
edit
forehead.
that clip and then all of the Dragons tries with like the Benny Hill themed song.
I mean, it's going to be a Welsh derby. There'll only be like three. It's a,
It'll probably be
it is
raining
something
as
that me
well.
and previous Dragons seat, Jamie, we both hate. It's our least favourite game of the season. We hate this derby. It's usually a hateful watch. But do you know what? I said if Dragons can finally get over the line, I'd actually genuinely be happy. But I'd be happier if Cardiff won.
no backtracking now. You've nailed your colours to the mast. You've got to, you made your bed. You got to lie in it now. So there you go.
And that'll be the end of the TikTok that gets edited.
Right, so that's enough of the past. Let's look on to the future. So we have some games this weekend. Hopefully, all four teams will actually be able to play this week. Who knows?
Forecast is good. Forecast is good.
Forecast is good. Right, so we're going to start off with another Anglo-South African game. This though is Scarlets hosting the Stormers before they go off on their South Africa tour. Hattie, do you want to lead us through this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be really thankful if another storm rolled in or, a global pandemic, just to stop this one. To be fair to the Stormers, they are storming ahead, not to be cheesy. Um, um, our injury list is concerning me. Um, I think there's like 6, 7 on there already, which is worrying. Hopefully some of them come back. It was just a one game off. But Lousy is on there, for example. A couple of other big players, which is just a bit concerning. Obviously, the Stormers had an incredible first game against Leinster. They played very, very well against the Ospreys. So coming into this game, we were undercooked in our first game. We've now missed a week and had the weird travel situation as well. Um, I absolutely cannot see us winning this. Um, my best hope would be 4 tries, just from really poor Stormers defence, which I'm not banking on, but maybe, some miracle Scarlets tries that we like to pull out every once in a while. But that would be absolute best case scenario. There is no way we're getting within 7, and I just can't see a win happening here. There's too many injuries, and the Stormers are too strong.
Well, there's negativity for you.
I know it rarely comes out of my mouth, but I don't think I want to watch this.
I I think I'd probably agree with you. I think the problem's going to be up front.
Yeah.
I think the chances are that you're not going to win enough collisions around the park. And ultimately they'll lose you the game. Unfortunately, it'll be 0-2. I hope I'm wrong, but I think it'll be 0-2 with obviously a game with a trip to Connaught left in the bag as well, potentially.
I'm going to be optimistic. I reckon I reckon you're just going to have a lot of jet lag Stormers who haven't been convincing. The big issue is apparently all the Stormers box are staying in London. Whether or not they all get integrated or not is thing. But if you end up with Sasha Feinberg, Gumazulu, the rest of the team can get red card and somehow still win. I'm not going to give everyone too much time to talk to these just because we are running out of time. And would like to do community corner. So next up we go to Nick, your first home game against Zebra.
Yeah, I'll try and be succinct. Obviously, a massive challenge against the top 4 team, Zebra.
Mm.
Fair play to them. Probably a similar level of funding as the Welsh teams. And to start off their season, I know they're playing at home, but to beat the Edinburgh and Lions, you have to, and building on last season by the looks of things, that shows of what can be done. Uh, we've actually got when we played this Zebra in the past, they've actually always been very close games since the start of the URC, usually one score games, I think. So, and we lost last year in Parma. So, obviously, I think Jack will be back, maybe a little bit of rotation. So, it should be a really good game. It's a Saturday afternoon kickoff. So hopefully we'll have a reasonable crowd. And as I say, whatever we did in South Africa is only as good as what we do on Saturday. So I think we'll come out on top. Be a few good tries both sides, but I think we might get a bonus point as well.
Excellent. Anyone want to jump in on that one?
No, I'm in agreement with Nick. I think brilliant from Zebra. Honourable mention to them for the way that they've started the year. Good on them. But I think a trip to the Dunraven Brewery Field um, may be a step too much for them. So yeah, and hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, I'm with Zebra. I think it's the manner they won as well, which is really exciting. But if you want to hear more about that, please do check out this week's edition of the United Rugby Rewind. Moving on to the next game of the weekend, in a repeat of the first game I ever came on here to talk about on the wrap, Glasgow Dragons. Although back then it was the Challenge Cup and it was a 73-33 loss and the most hateful game I've ever had to witness. And I'm challenged Dragons now to do better than that, which they should.
Yeah, you'd like to think we'd do better. Ultimately, I think there's going to be. This is not the sort of game that's make or break for us this season. Glasgow away. The next two fixtures at Rodney Parade are the ones for us. We've done okay against the Sharks in shocking weather conditions. Really, they didn't do anyone any favors. But it's the home games against Cardiff and then the Ospreys that are the big ones. I would say for our lot coming up at Rodney Parade. So I'm expecting some rotation. I give Wyn Jones and Rob Hunt a whiff. And rotate them if we've got the ability to do so. I know we picked up a knock. Martinez maybe on stand down for a head knock. But we got Rodri Jones to come in. I'd maybe give Big Levi Douglas a start and have a look maybe at someone like Mackenzie Martin starting. Do we need to take Wainwright with us? I don't know. I know he's in a rich vein of form, but if Thomas Young and Seb Davis become available, for me, it would be a good opportunity to get them the game time that they require. And I think I'd give Hugh Anderson a start. Um, give Angus O'Brien a whiff and see what Hugh Anderson can do. And it's a shot to nothing really for the Dragons, I suppose. Up in Scotland, no one's expecting them to win. Just like opening day in Ulster, but I would like to see some level of performance and ultimately come away with a bonus point or two. If we go down, I don't know, 40 odd, 30 odd, then I'll be happy with that. It's the performance for me again with the Dragons. I think this season, if we can stay in the fight and come away with a bonus point or two, then I'd be happy. If we fold and roll over and have our bellies tickled, then it'll reek of same old Dragons. But I think there's a different attitude about the team this season. So yeah, two points would be ideal, and I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the question for me is this going to be the game where we prove definitively whether or not Simone Funaki is real?
Well, he's an option as well, isn't he? And again, you look at the changes that the Dragons could potentially make, and again, we don't know the injury situation because the comms coming out haven't been great in terms of injuries. But the Dragons back row, for example, could be uh, Young, Mackenzie Martin, and Funaki. Well, you've got two ball carriers at 8 and 9 to start off with, and a fantastic footballer and a traditional number 7. It's a good balance to your back row there. But who knows? Because nobody can get anything out of the Dragons at the minute. I don't think in terms of comms from on injury status, etc. So it leaves you a little bit in the dark, doesn't it? But that's a possibility, isn't it, Harley? It'd be nice to see that South Sea Island, that Polynesian robustness on the blind side. Um, we'd be nice to have a look at him in a dragon shirt. Failing that, I
Absolutely.
don't know. You might see him next to the Scarlet Pimpernel somewhere. I don't know. That's the other.
Yeah.
That's the other possibility.
I said
He
it's a lot of money for the Dragons to spend on a Pontypool player, given we're the only place he's actually had any run out so far.
scored though, didn't he? Scored in that game. So
I'd hope a professional rugby player can score against an SRC type side.
yeah, well,
That for me is like the minimum.
I've heard the story about that as well, where he's travelled with Pontypool. I'll tell you off air because it's quite amusing. So
I
yeah,
imagine it's going to be very similar to a lot of South Sea Islander stories
yeah,
that you end up hearing about. And again, not for the under 18s
no,
to listen to.
absolutely.
Uh, finishing off the round as we pretty much seem to always do with Cardiff on the Saturday evening kickoff. We are hosting Connacht, as I mentioned. We've lost the last five, including all three last season. It's got to come good. I mean, we've had plenty of situations where we've played them in the middle of the Six Nations and stuff, whereas now we've really haven't got too many excuses. Few injuries, but our pack's looking good. I don't know if their Lions are going to be available yet. I think they're sort of saying Mac Hansen's going to be ready and he's fit, but I don't know if there's no mention of Bundyaki or Finley Beelum. Yeah, these when these games, I think Cardiff now are a much better side than when any of the games we played them last time, and arguably we should have won at least one, if not two of those. So we're hoping for Pride Night like Cats. It was encouraging to hear. Well, actually, we were looking forward to seeing Ed Byrne have a run out for the Rags because it looks like he's approaching match fitness. So that'd be good to just have an extra name in the selection. We're not just rolling between Danny Southworth and Reece Barrett. I'm hoping we get someone like Thea Cabango close enough to fitness because I think we're looking quite light and outside backs now with Harry Millar going down as well. Don't know what the answer is that, whether you bring Beetham into 13 or use or James, or you're looking, because otherwise you're looking at pulling someone up from the Rags. And really that's only Oshendal and Lewis, and he's still only and sort of 18, 19, which is a hard one to go against what would be an improved Connacht under Stuart Lancaster. Quite hoping they have a bit of ring rust because they've not played for a week, and maybe not prepping as if it was going to be a bye week might leave them a bit slow at the blocks. That's my 2 cents on it. Again, said hope. I'm just hoping for a good game. Again, preferably with a win
And a decent crowd as well, hopefully.
and a decent crowd. Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's a winnable game for Cardiff. As for every Welsh team, I think is if you can field your best 23 for that fixture, I think anyone's within a shout this season. But unfortunately, it seems that injuries have struck pretty much everywhere early on, and the depth isn't good, is it?
As we said in the predictions of the season, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we've got our best, even 25, 26, we're going to be very competitive. But once injuries start hitting, particularly when you have two or three in the same position,
Yeah,
that's when we're
absolutely.
struggling.
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. And the big worry I have for Beetham is he is going to be used plugging gaps here and there for the season as opposed to nailing one place down, which you end up with almost the James Hook issue of jack of all trades, master of none, really.
Yeah.
Moving on, we're going to move on to predictions. We're going to rattle them off. So your Scarlets, your Ospreys, your Dragons, Cardiff scores. So for me, I've gone for Scarlets by 3 because I do think at Park and Scarlets, I think they should. They've got a decent record against Southampton sides there. Ospreys by 5 just because Zebra can be quite sticky for the Ospreys, and Zebra are still at their sort of peak. If this was later in the season, I'd probably say Ospreys by more, but Zebra are incredibly good in this first block. I think Glasgow are going to win by 21. I think as they're slowly bringing in their internationals, their Lions, they seem to be improving despite a loss against a decent Benetton side last minute. And then I think Cardiff are going to break that duck and beat Connacht by 4. Next on the sheet, I've got Nick.
Okay, I'll go quickly. Stormers by 5, Ospreys by 11. I think Glasgow will be smarting after losing. So I go in Glasgow by 15 and Cardiff by 6.
Yep. And then next we have Dan.
Stormers by 10. It'll be selection dependent, but if they bring anything close to what we had seen in round 1, and if any of the box come back into the side, I think it'll be by 10. It'll be one up front for them. Ospreys by 10. Glasgow by 12. But we'll get a 4-try bonus point. Year first. Cardiff by 3.
Excellent. And then last but very much not least, Hattie.
Scarlet's best Stormers. I think it's gonna be Stormers by 15. For some reason in my head I can see it being like 37-22 to the Stormers. Ospreys versus Zebra. I think it's gonna be really close. I'm gonna say Zebra by like 4. Um, then Glasgow versus Dragons. I don't know, I'll go big. I'll say Glasgow by 18. And then I'm going to say Cardiff by 2.
That sounds all reasonable. I mean, Hattie predicting Zebra to go through on the bounce is actually quite a huge prediction, but I mean, if it happens, we'll go with it. So I hope you all enjoyed that all the rugby side of things and W shenanigans. We will talk about the community rugby in another podcast. We're just going to end it here. No time will have passed for us, but for you guys, we'll just have another episode go out. Hope you want to listen to that one. And as always, if you enjoyed what you listened to, subscribe and comment to us.